we have Hezbollah resurging, or at least apparently in the eyes of those who are outside of Lebanon, in the west, resurging. A massive drone attack on an Israeli base on Sunday, on Monday, sirens all across Tel Aviv because Hezbollah has been firing missile after missile, rocket after rocket in Tel Aviv. 2 million people in bomb shelters. We also have, of course, the UN troops, peacekeeping troops being threatened and fired upon over the past week. And of course, now we have in northern Gaza a resurgent genocidal campaign, images of Palestinians being burned alive in Al-Aqsa Hospital, which was housing many people displaced. And the United States, despite making threats on Netanyahu around an arms embargo, is sending a THAAD system as well as 100 plus troops to Israel as this oncoming war with Iran appears to be heating up, even though now Netanyahu is walking back the threats of oil and nuclear targeting. So perhaps, Laith, we can start with you. Let's talk about these fronts. What is going on? Perhaps we can start with the Lebanon front. What exactly is happening, and what does this indicate, given all of these very rapid developments?
Yeah, clearly the operations by Hezbollah have lifted any doubt in anybody's mind that they are still in control, that they are been able to recover from the Pager cyber terrorist attack and the assassinations of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah and other military leaders within the Hizb. Seeing on the one hand that precise attack on the newly built secret base for the Golani Brigade, and having Hezbollah being able to gather enough information and intelligence to know when the officers are having a dinner meeting to hit them with that drone carrying 2 Hellfire missiles and at the same time being a suicide drone, passing all the Israeli air defenses. And the daily operations on the ground here, where the Israelis haven't been able to move much on the border with Lebanon, going into 100 meters, 200 meters, and having to withdraw for 16 days now. That shows you that clearly Hezbollah has full control of the field, the battle on the ground, and also all its military intelligence and media structures are in full capacity. One last thing I would say is that the Deputy Secretary General of Hezbollah, Sayyid Safieddin, gave a speech today, and in it was clear that Hezbollah will not be stopping its defense of the Palestinian people, and that this is going to be a zero-sum game. There will be either the defeat of the Zionist colony or the end of all resistance in general. So we're going for the long game. There is not going to be any ceasefire, and Hezbollah is ready to bring the Zionist colony to its knees. In fact, the Deputy Secretary General of Hezbollah used the words that Israel is a enraged wild beast, and that Hezbollah will put the leash on it and pull it back to its barn. Those are the words that he used.
Lowkey, please step in.
So I think Israel has a wrong-headed belief that by decapitating organizations, you demoralize the fighters on the ground. But the history of the Palestinian struggle says the opposite. When Israel assassinated Abbas al-Musawi in the early 90s with his baby and his wife, the assumption that the Israelis had was that that would be the end of Hezbollah. What then happened in 2000, they were defeated, and in 2006, with only, according to US military estimations, 3,000 fighters at the time, Hezbollah defeated Israel. There were 9,000 fighters in total, but many were kept in reserve. Of course, we're dealing with a different situation now with Israel's technological advancement far further than it was at the time. But even when you look at other cases, the entire group of the founders of Hamas, for example, have all been assassinated by Israel. And yet today, Hamas is still seemingly able to strike Tel Aviv, even after a year of Israel's genocidal campaign in Gaza. You look at the case of the PFLP, Ghassan Kanafani was assassinated in Beirut in Golda Meir's Operation God's Wrath, in which they killed him and his teenage niece, Lemis. But after that, the PFLP went on to carry out the highest level assassination of any Israeli minister throughout this long battle with the Zionist entity, Riv Havam Ze'evi, who was the Israeli tourism minister at the time. You also have the case of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Fathi Shiqaqi was, of course, assassinated also, one of the key founders and the Secretary General of the PIJ at the time. And the PIJ is fighting against Israel until this day. So this attempt to demoralize the rank and file by taking out the leading figures and symbolic figures within movements has simply not been successful for Israel. And as I always mention, is the case of Izzeddin al-Qassam. If this policy was right-headed, you would not currently have today fighters fighting the Israelis who use the name of the fighter that the British assassinated in 1935. Actually, this policy is shown to lead to the opposite, in that it inspires many more to come forward to fight the Israelis more. And Israel cannot afford a war of attrition in Lebanon. And for that reason, I would say it's seeking to drag in the United States even further. It would try and encourage civil war in different parts of the resistance axis in order to escape having to be on the ground fighting with the fighters in Lebanon. Hence, you have seen this strike in the north of Lebanon just yesterday, in which they are attempting to pit those who have been displaced from the south in an oppositional position with some of those in the north who may be of a different denomination. The idea of a society which is non-sectarian, which is what Lebanon could be if it were not for external meddling, is completely antithetical to the idea of Zionism, because Zionism is in itself the epitome of a sectarian idea. It's the idea that Jewish people cannot be one with other societies they are part of. They have to create their own ghettoized entity, which is in a permanent state of aggression against the indigenous people within the place it is. But also within the Zionist movement, you have a heavy expansionist elements who are seeking, in their completely deluded state of mind, to think that they can build settlements in Lebanon, for example. We at Mint Press traced in the last year that many of the organizations who are jockeying to build settlements in Gaza, for example, have funding not only from US charities, which are tax exempt, but even from US government institutions and local administrative bodies in the United States. So this is raw settler colonialism that hasn't been seen really in the rest of the global South since the process of decolonization. You haven't seen this level of raw, naked European settler colonialism, which Israel is attempting to impose on the region as a whole. Israel has fantastical maximalist aims, which are simply unachievable. It wants to reconfigure the entire political system of Lebanon. It wants to take control of the education system and have curriculums which inculcate the population with the idea of normalization. This is really an attempt at normalization at the point of a gun, at the point of F-16s, F-15s, and F-35s. Israel will fail the longer that this continues.
Yeah, yes, indeed. And Laith, I want to bring you back in here because as Lowkey was talking about these maximalist aims, it made me think about this recent Absolutely, it's almost absurd. This idea, this unifil confrontation, Israel literally firing upon, having Merkava tanks firing upon UN peacekeeping troops. Now, UN peacekeepers actually have the capacity to strike back if they could. It seems like there might be something holding them back. I wonder if that's Washington. But Laith, I wanted your take on both this and also the significance of this drone attack that Hezbollah just waged, because on to the points that Lowkey was making, there was such a bluster after that on social media. It exploded. There were rumors of the IDF chief of staff being killed. It seems like he was not, but I think it was a huge blow to the confidence that Israel has been trying to sow with these maximalist aims it has over the course of these terrorist attacks. What do you make of it?
You see, October 7th crashed, demolished the Jewish supremacist ideal within Zionism. Zionism was telling the world and its followers that they are the chosen people, they are the best scientists, they're the best intelligence, they're the best military, everything is best. And October 7th came and destroyed this base of the identity of Zionism. And since that day, the resistance also in Lebanon, demolished this superiority within the settler colonial group and those in the West that believe in Zionism. And so the Pager cyber terrorist attack and those assassinations and the throwing 85 1-ton to 5-ton bombs in the middle of Beirut was an attempt to reassert supremacy, not only in the mind of the native indigenous people in the region, but also in the mind of the settlers themselves, the colonists themselves, and all the Western backers of this colony. It was supposed to reassert that. And what we've seen in the last 2.5 weeks almost is the inability of the Zionists to achieve any military gains in Lebanon. The fact that Hezbollah is fighting inside the frontline villages that are militarily fallen, that are in valleys, that are supposed to be in a regular military strategy. You would withdraw from that zone, allow your enemy to take it over, and then bombard them from the air by missiles and rockets. But Hezbollah is refusing to let these fallen territories, militarily fallen territories, to actually be captured by the Zionists, and is fighting for every inch. Why? Because they don't want the Zionists to have the ability to raise a flag on top of a Lebanese village and reassert supremacy. Okay, and so now we are seeing the fruits of Hezbollah's ability to stand where it is and to continue this fight. We're already seeing those who were within the support of the anti-imperialist camp that were demoralized after the assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah and his martyrdom now being reinvigorated. We're also seeing the demoralization happening again of the Zionist public, and the achievement, you see, like most people didn't understand the point of the last Hudhud or Hoppo video that came out just before the attack on the Golani base. People were like, oh, well, it's another video that's just threatening Israel. Well, it wasn't really a video about threatening Israel. It's a video that was to show that Hezbollah is in full capacity to, infiltrate the Zionist colony, to collect information and intelligence, and also its propaganda arm is still in full health. And here we go, they delivered with the drone attack. And this was a special drone attack because it was a drone that had 2 Hellfire missiles on it. And it was also a suicide drone. So this is a kind of drone warfare that we haven't even seen in any other military zone. So it's it shows that Hezbollah is in control, can collect the information and find a target and hit it, and that the Israelis can't stop any of these attacks. And I think because Hezbollah has been bombarding Tel Aviv on a daily basis, Israel stopped the bombardment of Beirut for the last 5 days, because originally, the Zionists were attacking the southern suburb of Beirut, the Dhaiphong, and Hezbollah was trying to assert a new formula, well, Dhaiphong for Haifa. But the Israelis, instead of agreeing to this formula, decided to attack Beirut proper, just a few, less than a kilometer away from the parliament. Okay, they attacked inside Beirut. And that's when Hezbollah was like, okay, we're going to attack Tel Aviv now. And it seems like the Israelis retreated from and now have accepted the limitations that Hezbollah has forced through its firepower.
Yeah, Lowkey, any follow-up?
Well, you mentioned the apparent standoff with Irish peacekeepers. Israel has a history of attacking UN sites. Even in Gaza by January this year, near 70 attacks on UN sites in Gaza were recorded by the Israelis. Netanyahu has described the UN as a house of darkness. And you have to remember there are clear racial implications about what he's saying. At the beginning of the genocidal campaign on Gaza, Netanyahu referred to the Palestinians as children of darkness and the Israelis as children of light. We, of course, know that when you look at the UN member states, you are looking at vast majority of them coming out of decolonization, vast majority of them from the global south. And Israel, and specifically Netanyahu, as somebody whose father was very close to Jabotinsky, Vladimir Jabotinsky, who Netanyahu essentially views as a inspirational figure, and Jabotinsky was somebody directly inspired by Mussolini and European fascism. And of course, you have to remember that there are more streets, cinemas, hospitals, roads, parks named after Vladimir Jabotinsky than any other Zionist figure in the history of the movement. So, of course, there is this antagonism between Israel and the rest of the world, which is only increasing by the day. And, many of people in the world understand what has happened in Gaza as the best of humanity being killed by the worst of humanity, while being watched by the rest of humanity. And it is worthy of note that those who have the least have given the most, and those who have the most have given the least when it comes to the story of Gaza. And it is precisely Lebanon's refusal to let go of Gaza's hand and allow it to drown. It is precisely Lebanon's stubbornness in a positive way to make sure that the Israeli campaign on Gaza would be lightened and weakened by drawing it to the northern front with Lebanon. And that in and of itself will stand in the annals of history as a supreme the definition of altruism, the definition of what they call in Arabic nakhwa, shahama. These are the qualities that have been required for individuals, entities, organizations, and states to truly stand with Gaza at this time, because it has been a known fact that there would be negative consequences for doing that. In Lebanon, long before the pager terrorist attack, it gave over 500 of its youngest, its best, its brightest individuals to try and help Palestine. And those people were sacrificed for the greater collective good in the understanding of those in the region. So really, we are in a new phase of what is an epic war. If Israel genuinely wants to achieve these unrealistic aims, it will need, this war will go on for longer than a decade. And you will see people drawn into Lebanon from all over. I would, of course, be interested in Laith's perspective on what he views as the likely time span we're thinking about with this. But probably what's more likely is Israel will fail to meet its objectives, as it has failed in Gaza, and it will be more likely to withdraw from Lebanon sooner. But I would be interested to hear Laith's perspective on that.
Look, there is always highs and lows in how we can analyze depending on of the event of the day. But honestly, in my opinion, I believe this war is not going to last more than a year from now. And there will be no Israel a year from today. And I'm not saying this lightly or, boasting or, dreaming. We know from the ground, first off, the Israeli military on the ground in Gaza is defeated. It hasn't been able to hold any ground. It has to keep on going in and out. And here in South Lebanon, it's already been defeated. We know that the Israeli air defenses are defeated by the missiles of Hezbollah, Yemen, Iraq, and Iran and their drones. We know that the Israelis are running out of air defense missiles. That's part of it why the Americans are bringing a second batch of THAAD air defense systems. Just to be clear, the Americans already had put THAAD missiles around the Israeli air base in the south of Palestine, the most important air base, and they put THAAD missile defense systems inside occupied zones of Syria around the Conoco oil fields. This was 6 months ago. So the THAAD systems failed during the 2 Iranian attacks. And if we watch the video from the October 1st retaliation by Iran from the 40 somewhat missiles hitting that airbase, you can ascertain from the video that the THAAD system was being blown up in front of our eyes, the radar systems of it and the batteries. So the only reason that the Americans are bringing another THAAD system into the Zionist colony right now is because the Israelis are running out of Arrow and David Sling's missiles. They can produce just a few hundred of them a year, and if they ran out of them. So, and it's just for show, because again, the THAAD systems were not able to stop the barrage of missiles from Iran. Now, once we understand that the Israeli military on the ground is defeated, its abilities in the air defenses are defeated, the only thing that is left is its air force. And as we saw, the Americans sent in 20 somewhat new F-35s with their pilots, because the Israelis don't have enough even pilots to fly those F-35s. That means that the US is already getting more and more directly engaged openly in this war. So in the situation of the Zionists attacking Iran now, and Iran retaliating, and all of the axis of resistance retaliating, the US will be drawn in directly. And so we're talking about this window in the next two and a half weeks before the American elections, that we will see ourselves in a regional war. Okay? Netanyahu is not going to wait for the American elections. He wants to guarantee that no matter who gets elected, they will be already drawn into a war that they cannot pull themselves out of. Now, put it in this perspective, if the US is involved in this war and there is no nuclear weapons used, I don't think there will be nuclear weapons used, then it means it's already foretold. The Americans cannot sustain heavy casualties. We said that about Israel before October 7th last year. Maybe that, now it looks like the Israelis can sustain heavy casualties, but the Americans, I don't think the public has been used to sustaining heavy casualties since Vietnam. Okay, so a war will end within a year. It could end with either the collapse of the Zionist colony and with the withdrawal of the Americans from the region, and there will be no Israel. And also the other option is there will be no Israel, but there will be no humanity, and all of us under a nuclear holocaust will be gone. But for sure, within the next year, there will be no Israel. Either we all are not with it, or it doesn't exist on this planet. That's what I think.
Thank you for tuning in to my latest video. I appreciate all of your support. This channel, however, needs your help. I am seeking to make this channel more sustainable in the long term and upgrade necessary equipment to ensure that this work continues onward and makes progress to give you all of the geopolitical analysis that you all deserve. For that reason, I'm asking you to become a member of my Patreon community at patreon.com/DannyDhaiphong. You can find that link in the video description or in the pinned comment below. For whatever amount you choose to give, just know you are supporting independent media that you can't find anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next video.